Welcome, everybody. I am the Hare, and welcome to a campaign diary of the Wandering Few, my second campaign that I currently have going because I love DMing, apparently. This campaign picks up as Chapter 2, Session 1. We are at the funeral of a Uril who the party had met on the Tremor train in their earliest expeditions. And yes, I do plan on going back and giving a nice long video explaining everything that happened in Chapter 1. However, I feel like I just need to get out there and start making these videos for Chapter 2, and you kind of can pick up everything when I give the synopsis of what happened earlier. So, we're at the funeral. The party is gathered with a lot of the other crew members from Barswell Point, as well as Lord Thomas and his entourage is there in one of the taverns that was frequented by Uril when he was alive, and they are there to honor him in the best way the dwarves know how, with lots of booze. So they're drinking it up. They just got done with some toasts and talking about Uril when there is suddenly a loud whooshing sound and a crash, and the entire side of the tavern crashes in where the casket is laid, and a Dracolich has now entered the building and is just hissing at everybody. It reaches down with its boned talons and rips the casket off of the platform it's on and flies back off. This giant hole, and now the rest of the crowd gathered now turns and looks down the streets of Barswell, and off into the distance they see skeletons are slowly now just trudging through the city coming at them. A battle ensues between this army of skeletons. The few characters that get up high can look, and as far as they can see in every street, in every direction, there are skeletons everywhere, just assaulting the city, attacking its townspeople. Various heroes and strongmen are standing up to the skeletons and taking them on. The heroes end up fighting out their own amount of skeletons around the courtyard before the tavern. As the battle wages on, suddenly the ground starts to shake, and a giant skeleton makes its way down the street, barreling towards them. The battle shifts, the attention of the characters and the shifts of the heroes to the giant to mainly attack it, but as they're attacking it, more skeletons are still pouring in from the rest of the streets. They're trying to protect the Lord. At this point, Cuddlescar and a few of the other more NPCs are coming forth and helping fight alongside them. Some healers and other soldiers are helping fight alongside. They're keeping the entourage still stuck inside of the tavern at more or less safe, but they start to fall and get overwhelmed. The party starts to shift their attention over to there. They finish filling off the giant. As they do this, as the giant falls, it's almost as if the connection to life drops from the skeletons. And the few remaining that were starting to overwhelm them cease being animated. The battle's won. This outskirts, this suburb, shall we say, of Barswell Point is in shambles. Buildings are on fire, but slowly being put out as the town slowly comes back out and reacts to the damage that has been done. Reports start coming in that not only was Uril stolen, but they find out that a few other graves nearby at various temples and or graveyards have been ransacked in the same manner. And they don't know for sure, but there's a chance that others have been taken as well or raised to be part of the army that was attacking the city. They find that the army of skeletons came from the northeast and didn't leave. It was pretty easy to find. In fact, actually, the fact that they marched just here endlessly is the only reason why no news got to it. They were managed to basically be slaughtering or killing things in its path and just marching endlessly towards Barswell from the north. Lord Thomas tasks the adventurers one more time with a favor and asks them to be in the ploy, since he is already stretched thin with the war happening on his southern border and the rifters and other parts of his military helping to rebuild after the rifts and taking care of those issues. If they would take on the challenge of figuring out where these skeletons came from and why they attacked. An army of the undead that suddenly comes out of nowhere is not something that's normal and needs to be tracked down. The party agrees and takes a rest, healing their wounds. They move forward to follow the blatantly obvious churned ground of these hundreds of skeletons that come from the northeast. As they go, they come across various smaller villages that it looks like the army had detoured just a little bit off to one side or the other to swing through graveyards as they pass them and raise new skeletons to join their ranks, much to the shock of the villages and communities that they passed through. Angie actually makes a high impression in one of these by actually giving them 30 gold to help rebuild and rebury their dead. This is more money than most of those villagers had ever seen. And they agree that they will do their best to use it to the best if they can and to the best of the village. Somebody's got fans. They continue on and they end up coming into the Farnna Timberland. Now, the army has grown a bit after it had left, but it's still a sizable army had trudged through the Timberland. Again, it's easy to follow. They weren't trying to hide their tracks. It's well-churned dirt from all of these boots and skeleton feet and just the hundreds and hundreds of humanoids that march through here. They follow it through the Timberland, and eventually, as they're following it back, they realize that they might not be alone, and they see that the ground is starting to rot, and the trees are no longer making the same creaking sound they normally would. Healthy trees are making more of a moan as they realize that the trees are rotting around them. The ground is rotting around them. The vegetation's dying. And in the course of an hour's travel, the forest has completely changed to this almost sick, greasy, slick, slimy rot that has taken hold. Ch2 is not impressed. As they make their way through this now dying forest, they come across what best could be described as a gigantic constrictor snake. Except it's not normal looking. It's rotting itself. It's like a zombie. It's a zombie constrictor snake. And unfortunately, it catches wind of them, and the party unfortunately has to attack it. While they're attacking the snake, a few other zombies make their way onto the battlefield. They end up killing the snake. Angie delivers the final blow, killing this constrictor snake. Just to have it start stitching itself back together. It's a very weird look to it too. It's regenerating, but snakes don't regenerate. And surprisingly enough, Angie's the one who, or not Angie, I'm sorry. Surprisingly enough, they've seen this before when they fought a troll. The constrictor snake comes back to life. Angie kills it one more time, and this time douses it with fire upon the suggestion from Ch2 that fire might do it. And fire, sure enough, stunts the regeneration. In fact, actually, now the skin suddenly fries, and sizzles and disintegrates a little bit. Parts of the snake are now completely visible. Parts of the flesh react very differently to the fire. It really smells bad, and then they realize that some of the organs that are inside don't look like snake organs. This is the heart from a humanoid. Very weird. Taking a few of the more interesting parts of the snake with them, they continue on following the trail and come to what looks like a collapsed manor house. Inside of this collapsed manor house, they find a basement, and the trail of the skeletons, the skeleton army, leads into this rubble ramp out of the basement of this completely collapsed manor house. In the basement, though, they lose track of the footing. They can't really make sure where it's coming from. They investigate. They look around. They try and find things. And sure enough, they find a trap door. And upon investigating a little more, they realize that they turn this knob, this rock this way, and push on that one. Suddenly, the floor seems to slide apart and revealing another large ramp. Following this ramp now, whereas the basement was dingy and dusty and hardly ever used, this is a well-lit corridor. This is a well-used corridor. And it smells funny. They start investigating. They see the corridor laid out before them at the base of the ramp has 4 doors, 2 on each side. And opening these doors, the doors are kind of rotten. Like they've been there a while, but they're not really maintained, and they kind of fall off their hinges. And they find one room is just completely filled with this jars of liquids, but biological liquids. It's really disconcerting to see that much blood and mucus collected. They find another room with medical supplies, they think, but it looks like long saws and probing instruments and things that might be used in embalming. Very disconcerting. And then they come across a room that Ch2 smashes in the door, and a smell of death just floods over them. So much so that Farnna loses her lunch. This room is filled with corpses, various humanoids of varying sizes, varying dresses. Some look like they could have been fighters, some look like they're just villagers, some look common, and some look like travelers. Upon inspection, they find some elves, orcs, gnomes, halflings, humans. It's a wide mix. Not happy with the situation and not deciding that this is not the way that the dead need to be taken care of. Angie sets them on fire. I think it was Angie. If I'm wrong, correct me, guys, but somebody sets them on fire, and then they proceed down. Now it smells like burning, rotting flesh. As they go down this ramp that curves off to the bottom, they come across this, what only could be described as a construct of body parts, misshapen body parts that seem to be not held together, but they don't belong. And then on top of that, armor has been kind of strapped to it haphazardly with straps in various ways. And it's got the flesh on its head is kind of sagging off of it, and it's got this misshapen helmet on, and it is just lumbering towards them, pushing a wheelbarrow. The party throws a few rocks at it, Ch2 specifically, and it doesn't react. So they let it pass, and they follow it back up the ramp and it goes into the room with the corpses. It notices the fire off to one side and avoids it and goes to another pile, loads 3 corpses onto the wheelbarrow, and then proceeds out and back down the ramp and down the hall and through some doors. They look at the rest of the rooms. They find stuff of very similar constructs, more armor at this point, and some other things in the room stored away. But when they follow it down the hallway and into the double doors, they're greeted by 2 more of these constructs and 2 giant slabs where the bodies are piled. And the other constructs doing these huge cleaver-like great axes and sever the limbs from the bodies. They are then picked up and taken to 4 adjacent rooms. Looks like arms in one, legs in another, torsos in yet a third, and heads in a fourth. The one that they had with the wheelbarrow now goes to those various rooms and proceeds, he proceeds to go back up and get probably more bodies. Another one comes up from the stairs at the end and proceeds to fill a crate with various body parts from the various rooms. 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head, and a torso. But the arms don't match, and I'm pretty sure that has 2 left feet for real this time. And then he proceeds to go down the stairs. These constructs just go about their work, continue to chop up these bodies, not paying any mind to the adventurers. The wandering few make their way down the stairs following the last one. Unfortunately, this is where their stealth ran out, and Angie tripped and fell down the stairs, alerting the halfling in a smock with these big glasses on and some weird tools in his hands as he whips around. "You're not here! Be gone! Attack!" And he jumps down from his step stool and proceeds to start running for the doors at the end of this room. As the constructs all now turn and pick their giant cleaver axes up and charge at the party. Farnna decides that she's now going to shadow step and tries to jump in front of the halfling and catch him. She manages to actually hurt him. He, in turn, tries to cast hold person on her. It doesn't quite work, but he's able to then slip past her, going through the doors and slamming them shut behind him. The rest of the party engages these constructs that are in front of them and easily eliminates them. They proceed to using fire. They find that fire is very effective on them, and again they kind of shun away from it for one. It also kind of sizzles and pops certain parts of their flesh. It's very odd. But eventually they defeat these constructs, and now they run to the end of the room. It's barred. The big double doors are braced. Ch2 thinks about this for a minute, and decides to turn herself into an elk and charge the door. Salona luckily gets out of the way in time. A few hits of the elk eventually bashes in the door, makes a hole big enough for a humanoid to fit through. The party then looks through. They see what seems to be a large octagon room with some kind of arcane symbol in the center of the room etched into the floor, slowly fusing some glow to it, fading away. And a pile of mass of muscle and bone is off to the side. As they start to make an entrance into it and look, that bone and pile starts to move. The muscles moving in some weird fashion and start to pull itself together into a roughly humanoid shape that is now lumbering towards the door. Hearing the clashing and clattering, they turn around. They see more of those constructs from the story above them are now coming down the stairs. The party reacts. At this point, Salona throws some oil on the base of the stairs, lighting it on fire. It stops the constructs from coming down. The giant collection of muscle and bone has now made its way to the door and is now bashing its way through, trying to hit Ch2, who's standing there. Ch2 manages to fend off this giant bone golem for a while the rest of the party deals with the constructs, between slashing off at the legs and making them knock down the stairs. Eventually, the fire going out, the rest of the constructs comes down. Ball bearings are now thrown on the floor, thanks to Salona. There's a trip hazard. They fail their dex save. They fall into a giant pile now at the base of the stairs where Remy is standing, and she is slashing at both of the pile of these constructs that came down the stairs. Lore is casting spells left and right, doing actually a lot of damage because it's radiant damage to these constructs, and they manage to obliterate those just as Ch2 falls from the damage she's taken, and realizing that her life is being sucked out of her. Angie runs to her assistance. Through some weird mishaps, the bone golem actually has to get stuck inside Ch2's cape and is being held in place for a while. When Angie gets there, she's hacking at it, and they realize the necrotic damage that Angie's sword normally does being absorbed and helping to heal or offset the damage she's doing by her greatsword. She drops the greatsword using her cleaver, realizing that doesn't do any damage. Ch2 is slashing with her fire sword before she finally takes enough damage to go unconscious. The rest of the party runs over. Lore runs close to her, looking like he's trying to help Ch2. Angie decides that she shouldn't bother to try and help and turns her full attention, swinging with her greatsword since it was doing more damage, even with a little bit of necrotic, the green necrotic energy being sucked in by the monster, hacking and slashing at the monster as she went. She decides, as their Lore then gets close enough to actually heal not Callie, that's the other campaign, to heal Ch2. Angie decides maybe holy water, undead, sure. She pours holy water on her blade, and suddenly feels a psychic scream in her head that's so excruciating. She loses consciousness and passes out beside Ch2. The rest of the party is now freaking out. Two of their members have gone down unconscious. One near death, one not. Lore heals Ch2, brings her, spares the dying, brings her back to 1 health point, and then proceeds to chug some healing potions. Then Lore casts Turn Undead, and surprisingly actually succeeds to turn the golem. The bone golem churns and runs away, taking a couple strikes from Ch2 as it does. Salona and Ch2 make their way into the room, chasing down the bone golem. Lore does as well, casting a storm into this domed room, striking with lightning, taking the cue that lightning did a bunch of damage. Ch2 joins the storm, casts her own storm to make it an even more intense storm, and casts lightning down upon the golem that finally fries it, and it explodes in this mass of muscle, sinew, and bone. They revive. Angie actually brings herself to consciousness around the same time the bone golem went out. And the party is left wondering, what did they just walk into? And that is where we ended session 3, actually. So we'll call this session 1 through 3 of the Wandering Few, as they've made their way into the Timberland and into somebody's weird, undead Frankenstein lair. If you'd like to know more about the thought processes that go into me creating this particular campaign, which is completely homebrewed, completely out of my own head, and made now in Haven's world or something like that, I will include a link to the Scarab for this if you'd like to take a look. You actually get the entire backstory of everything that happened in Chapter 1, as well as find out where they are currently going, and I will be posting updates every week as we play, and before I make the videos. So, now you're caught up on the Wandering Few. what is going on with this cat? What's going on with the rest of the world? Why is the Ulag Empire trying to invade? Feel free to find out. Will that happen? Why did they stumble into? What's going to happen? What interesting information might they glean from this laboratory now that they have it? And where did that little halfling go? To find out these answers and more, tune in next week or the next video to find out more about the Campaign Diaries of the Wandering Few. I hate commercials, so I'm never going to monetize this station. However, if you would like to help me, by all means, you can buy my card game, 5-Minute Sword Fight, where it's based on the sword fighting show I put on at Renaissance Festivals with the Swords of Valour, or you can order a chainmail dice pouch custom made by me on my Etsy store down below, or you can always just join Patreon, where I am going to try and make a couple of one-shot dungeons scenarios to throw out there about once a month. That's my goal. Feel free to do that. As well as keep an eye out, I will be starting a Twitch stream probably sometime in August, where I'll be making these videos live. And we're going to start, one will be the Campaign Diaries and How Haven Did It video for the Horde of the Dragon Queen, followed by the Wandering Few, and answering any other questions of anything else that I am currently doing and working on. I'll basically do an hour-long show on Tuesday nights. The goal, sometime in August. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, by all means, shoot me an email, write me down below. I love talking about D&D, especially love talking about homebrewing and all the stuff that went into the programming of this. And if you'd like to know more, watch the How Haven Did It video. And with that, bid you a fond farewell and make you make all of life saving throws. Wandering Few, Campaign Diary, Session 1 of Chapter 2. Quick! To the king! No, that doesn't make sense. I'm going to wipe my nose and we're going to edit that out in a minute.